The abandoned station. The derelict station floated in the void like a metal corpse, spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. Most species would have stripped it for parts centuries ago, but the Krevan Empire had a different philosophy. They built things to last forever, then abandoned them when newer models came along. Station Sigma 7 had been forgotten for 300 years, drifting in dead space where nobody bothered to look. Until now, Commander Vexaren of the Galactic Salvage Authority stood on his ship's bridge, all 6 of his eyes focused on the ancient structure. His species, the Krell, were known throughout the galaxy for their efficiency and ruthlessness. They didn't waste time on sentiment or curiosity. They calculated value, extracted resources, and moved on. Initial scans complete, Commander, his first officer reported, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The station contains approximately 47,000 tons of recyclable materials. Estimated value, 2 million credits. However, there's one complication. Vexaren's eye stalks swiveled toward his officer. What complication? There appears to be a biological signature in the station's core. Minimal life signs, probably some creature that wandered in and got tracked when the Krevans abandoned the facility. The commander made a dismissive gesture with 3 of his arms. Irrelevant. Begin salvage operations. If the creature interferes, eliminate it. What Vexthera didn't know was that a small human survey vessel had been monitoring the same sector. The HSS Wanderer was barely bigger than a shuttle, crewed by just 3 people conducting long-range exploration surveys. When their sensors picked up the salvage ship's activities, Captain Maria 10 felt her curiosity spike. Kai, what's the Krell ship doing out here? She asked her navigator. Kai pulled up the sensor data, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. Looks like they're preparing to dismantle that old Krevan station. Standard salvage op. Although, you frowned at the readings. There's something alive in there. Maria's engineer, a gruff woman named Sarah Torres, snorted from her station. The Krell won't care. They'll just vent that section to space and be done with it. Something about that bothered Maria. The Krevans had been master builders, creating technology that sometimes seemed almost alive. What if whatever was in that station wasn't just some random creature? What if it was something the Krevans had left behind intentionally? Take us closer, Maria ordered. Stealth approach. I want to see what we're dealing with before the Krell start cutting. The discovery. Getting aboard the station without the Krell noticing required some creative maneuvering, but humans had gotten good at being overlooked by the galaxy's bigger powers. The Wanderer docked at an auxiliary port that the salvage ship's crew probably hadn't even noticed yet. Maria, Kai, and Sarah suited up and entered the dead station. The interior was a maze of corridors that hadn't seen light in 3 centuries. Their suit lamps cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in strange Krevan symbols and machinery that looked more organic than mechanical. Everything was covered in dust and ice crystals, preserved perfectly in the airless void. The life sign is coming from the central core, Kai said, checking his scanner. 3 levels down and about half a kilometer forward. They moved through the station carefully, aware that the ancient structure could be unstable. But as they descended deeper, Maria noticed something odd. The station wasn't just old and abandoned. It had been designed with purpose, like a massive shell protecting something precious at its heart. When they finally reached the core chamber, what they found took their breath away. The room was enormous, easily 100 meters across, with walls covered in displays that still flickered with faint power. And in the center, suspended in some kind of stasis field that was barely functioning, was a creature unlike anything Maria had ever seen. It looked vaguely insectoid, with a crystalline carapace that shifted through colors even in the dim light. But its structure was impossibly complex, with layers of what appeared to be both biological and technological components seamlessly integrated. Delicate wings, currently folded, seemed to contain circuitry that glowed with residual energy. The creature was roughly the size of a large dog, but its form suggested it could reconfigure itself into different shapes. Holy shit, Sarah whispered. Is that thing alive? Maria approached slowly, studying the displays around the chamber. Thanks to her linguistics training, she could make out some of the Krevan script. What she read made her heart race. It's not just alive, she said quietly. According to these records, this is a keeper. The Krevans created them as living repositories of knowledge. This one contains the complete technological and cultural archive of an entire Krevan sector. Everything they knew, everything they built, it's all stored in this creature's neural matrix. Kai looked shocked. How is that possible? Even our most advanced quantum computers couldn't store that much information. The Krevans didn't think like us, Maria replied, still reading the ancient text. They believed that consciousness and information were the same thing. This keeper isn't just storing data. It is the data. Every circuit in its body, every cell in its structure, it's all part of one massive living database. Sarah checked her scanner, and her expression darkened. The stasis field is failing. It's been running on backup power for centuries, and it's almost gone. When it fails completely, the keeper will die. And if it dies, all that knowledge dies with it. Before Maria could respond, her communicator crackled to life. It was a Krell voice, harsh and direct. Attention, human vessel. You have 30 standard minutes to evacuate the station. We are beginning demolition procedures. Any beings remaining inside will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The impossible choice. Maria stared at the keeper, her mind racing. 30 minutes wasn't enough time to understand the stasis system, let alone repair it. And even if they could get the creature back to their ship, they had no way to keep it alive long term. The technology was too advanced, too different from anything humanity had developed. But letting it die was unthinkable. The Keeper represented thousands of years of accumulated knowledge from one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. More than that, it was a living being, perhaps the last of its kind, left here alone and forgotten for 300 years. We have to try to save it, Maria said. Sarah shook her head. Captain, be realistic. We can't power that stasis field with our ship's systems. We don't have the equipment or the expertise, and we definitely can't fight off a Krell salvage crew. Then we don't fight them, Maria replied, an idea forming in her mind. We convince them. Kai looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Convince the Krell, the species that's famous for never changing their plans or showing mercy? The ones who are about to blow this place up in, he checked his chronometer, 27 minutes? Maria was already moving toward the exit. Get back to the ship, both of you. Prepare for emergency departure and get our medical bay ready to receive an unusual patient. I'm going to talk to Commander Vexterom. That's suicide, Sarah protested. No, Maria said with more confidence than she felt. That's negotiation. The Krell respect one thing above all else, value. I just need to show them that what's in this station is worth more than 2 million credits in scrap metal. The negotiation. Getting a communication channel to the Krell commander was surprisingly easy. Getting him to listen was harder. Human captain. Vexteron's voice came through with barely concealed irritation. You have 24 minutes to evacuate. We do not negotiate with trespassers. What if I told you there's something in this station worth more than your entire salvage operation? Maria said quickly. Something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. There was a pause. Maria had gambled that Krell curiosity, however small, existed somewhere beneath her efficiency. Explain, briefly. Maria took a breath and launched into the most important sales pitch of her life. She explained about the Keeper, about the vast repository of Krevan knowledge it contained. She talked about lost technologies, about star maps to resource-rich sectors the Krevans had discovered and never shared, about engineering techniques that could revolutionize ship design. And you expect me to believe, Vexteron said skeptically, that the Krevan simply left all of this behind? They didn't mean to, Maria replied. Look at your own scans. This station was designed as a fortress, protecting the core chamber. Something happened during the Krevan collapse. They probably planned to return for the Keeper, but never got the chance. It's been waiting here for 3 centuries for someone to understand its value. Another pause, longer this time. Maria could imagine the commander calculating, weighing the potential reward against the risk of believing a human he'd never met. 15 minutes remain, Vexteron finally said. Transmit the station's core chamber coordinates. I will send a team to verify your claims. If you are lying human, you will regret wasting my time. And if I'm telling the truth, Maria asked. Then we discuss terms. Maria sent the coordinates and raced back to the core chamber. Sarah and Kai had remained despite her orders, working frantically to stabilize the failing stasis field using portable power cells from their suits. It wouldn't last long, but it might buy them precious minutes. The Krell boarding team arrived in full combat armor, massive and intimidating. But their leader, a scarred veteran named Krath, took one look at the Keeper and immediately started scanning it with sophisticated equipment. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the data. "The human's claims are accurate, Commander," Krath reported over his comm. "This entity contains technological specifications for 37 types of faster-than-light drives, including several designs more efficient than our current models. That's just the surface-level data. Deep scanning suggests the information density is unprecedented." Maria watched as Commander Vextherin himself arrived, moving through the station with surprising speed for someone of his size. He studied the Keeper for a long moment, his 6 eyes taking in every detail. "This changes things," he said finally. "Human Captain, you have presented me with an interesting problem. The Keeper's knowledge is valuable, perhaps invaluable, but it is dying. Our species does not possess the medical technology to sustain such a unique life form. Do yours?" It was the question Maria had been dreading. "No," she admitted, "we don't. But we have something else. We have the ability to learn, to adapt, to try things that don't make logical sense because we believe they might work anyway. The Krell are efficient and logical. Humans are stubborn and creative. That Keeper needs both." Vextherin's eye stalks swiveled, studying her intently. "You propose a partnership." "I propose we save a life and share what we learn from it," Maria corrected. "You get access to the Keeper's technical database. We get to ensure it survives and hopefully help it recover. Everyone wins except the void that's been slowly killing it for 300 years. For a long moment, the ancient station was silent, except for the faint hum of failing systems. Then Commander Vextherin did something Maria suspected Krell rarely did. He changed his plan. "Agreed," he said. "But understand this, human. If your methods fail and the Keeper dies, the salvage rights to this station revert entirely to the Galactic Salvage Authority. You will have nothing except the satisfaction of knowing we tried," Maria said. "How very human," Vextherin replied. But there might have been something almost like respect in his tone. Against all logic, when the 72 hours were a blur of activity that pushed both species far outside their comfort zones, the Krell wanted to approach the Keeper's revival with systematic precision, running tests and calculations before every action. Maria and her crew operated on intuition and improvisation, trying techniques that made the Krell visibly uncomfortable. The Keeper had been transferred to a specially modified cargo bay on the Krell salvage ship, where Vextherin's medical officer, a methodical individual named Frail, worked alongside Sarah to create a hybrid life support system. The technology mismatch was enormous. Krell equipment was efficient and powerful, but inflexible. Human equipment was adaptable, but limited in scope. "This is impossible," Frail declared for the 14th time, watching Sarah rewire a neural interface using spare parts and sheer determination. "You are connecting systems that were never designed to work together. The feedback could damage the Keeper's neural matrix irreparably. Or it could save its life," Sarah shot back, not pausing in her work. "Your equipment can provide the power, but it can't adapt to the Keeper's changing needs. This little beauty," she patted the makeshift regulator she built, "will monitor and adjust in real time." Kai had taken on the challenge of communicating with the Keeper. The creature wasn't conscious exactly, but its neural matrix showed patterns that suggested some level of awareness. Using a combination of Kreven linguistic databases and human pattern recognition software, he was slowly building a bridge. "The Keeper's thoughts aren't like ours," he explained to Commander Vextherin during one of their coordination meetings. "It doesn't think in words or even images. It thinks in relationships. Every piece of data in its mind is connected to every other piece through meaning and context. It's like a living web where each strand vibrates with information." "Fascinating," Vextherin admitted. "But how does this help us stabilize it?" "Because I think the Keeper is lonely," Kai said. It's been isolated for 3 centuries, cut off from the network of other keepers it was designed to interact with. That isolation might be causing more damage than the power loss. It needs connection. The commander's eye stalks swiveled skeptically. You're suggesting the creature is suffering from emotional distress? I'm suggesting that for a being made of pure information and connection, isolation is a form of death, Kai replied. We need to give it something to connect to. The human touch. That's when Maria made her most controversial decision. While the Krell and her crew worked on the technical aspects of keeping the Keeper alive, she started spending hours in the converted cargo bay, simply talking to the unconscious creature. She told it stories about Earth, about humanity's journey to the stars, about art and music, and all the illogical, beautiful things humans did for no practical reason. She read poetry aloud, played recordings of orchestral music, and showed it images of Earth's oceans and mountains. Vexeril found this behavior baffling. Captain Chen, the Keeper cannot process your communications in its current state. You are wasting time that could be spent on productive tasks. Maybe, Maria agreed. But every culture that studied consciousness has found the same thing. Beings who are comatose or suspended still show responses to familiar voices, to music, to emotional stimuli. We're trying everything technical. I'm trying something else. What Maria didn't mention was that she'd started to feel a connection to the Keeper. Sometimes, when a cargo bay was quiet and she was alone with the creature, she could swear she felt something. Not thoughts exactly, but impressions, colors that meant emotions, patterns that suggested curiosity. On the 4th day, something changed. Kai was the first to notice it. The neural patterns in the Keeper's matrix were reorganizing, forming new connections at a rate that should have been impossible with the damage it had sustained. It's healing itself, he said in wonder, watching the monitors. But I don't understand how. Our Lexor is barely maintaining basic functions. Where is it getting the energy for this kind of neural reconstruction? Sarah had a fury. What if it's not about energy? What if it's about purpose? We've been treating the Keeper like a machine that needs fuel. But maybe it's more like a plant that needs sunlight. Captain Chen's been feeding it information, connection, reasons to live. Maybe that's what it runs on. The Krell found this hypothesis ridiculous, but they couldn't argue with the results. The Keeper was undeniably improving, defying every prediction their models had made. Commander Vextherin spent more time observing Maria's sessions with the creature. Once, she caught him watching from the doorway as she played a recording of a human orchestra performing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. "This is your strategy?" he asked. "Music?" "This is my hope," Maria corrected. The Krevans built the Keepers to preserve knowledge, but they made them living beings to do it. Life needs more than data and power. It needs meaning, connection, beauty, all the things your scanners can't measure. Inefficient, Vextherin said, but he didn't sound convinced anymore. The moment of truth. On the 7th day, the Keeper opened its eyes. The change was sudden and dramatic. One moment, the creature was suspended in unconsciousness. The next, its crystalline carapace blazed with light, cycling through colors faster than the human eye could follow. Alarms went off across every monitoring system as the Keeper's neural activity spiked to levels that should have been fatal. "It's dying," Vexeril shouted, rushing to adjust the life support systems. But Maria, standing closest to the Keeper, saw something different. The patterns in the light weren't chaotic. They were deliberate. The creature was communicating, trying to express something urgent through the only means it had available. "Wait," she said, holding up her hand. "Don't adjust anything. Just watch." The lights began to slow, to stabilize, forming patterns that were almost like language. Kai's translation software struggled to keep up, but fragments of meaning came through. Alone. So long. Alone. Now, connection. Warmth. Purpose. Remember purpose. Maria stepped closer, ignoring warnings from both crews. She reached out and placed her hand gently on the Keeper's crystalline surface. It was warm, pulsing with energy. "You're not alone anymore," she said softly. "We're here, we're listening. What do you need?" The Keeper's lights shifted to a deep blue that somehow conveyed gratitude. Then words began appearing on nearby displays, translated by Kai's systems. Real words, not fragments. "I am Shalvara, Keeper of the 7th Archive. I have been waiting. The creators are gone, but their knowledge remains. You wish to learn? Commander Vextheron moved forward, his 6 eyes wide with something that might have been awe. We wish to learn, he confirmed. We wish to help you recover fully. What do you require? The keeper's color shifted again, this time to warm gold. I require what you have already provided. Connection, purpose, the proof that consciousness still seeks understanding. The creators built us to preserve knowledge, but they taught us that knowledge without sharing is meaningless. You have reminded me of this truth. Over the following weeks, an unprecedented partnership formed. The Keeper Salvara began sharing the 7th Archive's treasures with both the Krell and the humans. But it wasn't a simple data dump. The creature insisted on teaching, on context, on ensuring its students understood, not just the how, but the why of Krevan technology. The Krell gained access to revolutionary engineering designs that would advance their civilization by decades. But they also learned something unexpected, that efficiency wasn't the only measure of value. Sometimes the seemingly wasteful approach, the creative leap, the intuitive guess, could achieve what logic alone could not. Humanity received equally valuable gifts: advanced medical technology, new approaches to sustainable energy, star charts to worlds the Krevans had surveyed but never colonized. But they also learned that their tendency toward empathy and connection wasn't a weakness. It was a unique strength that other species needed. New beginnings. 6 months after the rescue, Maria stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, watching as the Keeper, now fully recovered, demonstrated its abilities for a delegation from the Galactic Council. Shalvara had become something of a celebrity, the last survivor of a legendary civilization, brought back from the edge of death by an unlikely alliance. Commander Vextharan had become an unexpected ally. The Krell commander had lobbied his government to establish the Joint Archive Recovery Initiative, combining Krell efficiency with human adaptability to search for other lost keepers throughout the galaxy. Your species continues to surprise me, Vextharan told Maria during a break in the demonstration. We Krell have always believed that sentiment was inefficient, but you saved the Keeper not because it was logical, but because you believed it deserved to live, and in doing so you unlocked value that no calculation could have predicted. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs, Maria replied. Different species, different approaches, working together instead of competing. The Krevans built the Keepers to preserve the past. Maybe we can build something together that creates the future. Shalvara's color shifted to warm amber. The shade that Maria had learned meant agreement and approval. The Keeper's voice came through the translation systems, clear and strong.